Okay, say it again.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Good morning.
I can see you good and hear you good.
Okay, great. Thank you. Miss Kathy, welcome. Miss Randy, can you hear us okay?
Morning.
Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me all right?
Randy gave you a thumbs up. Marcia, can you hear us? Marcia is muted.
She's working on coming on.
Okay.
Can you hear me better now? I'm trying to change my volume settings. Kathy, can you hear me at all?
I can hear you, yes. Mhm.
Okay. All right. Miss Marcia's coming on.
I don't see me.
I don't know why you're not showing. Okay, Kristen.
Yeah, you gotta turn the camera on. So, hold on, I'll fix it. Hold on. Oh, sorry, one sec.
Camera. Oh, here we go. Start video.
Good morning. Do you hear me now?
There we go.
I can. Good morning.
You hear
Oh,
me?
thank goodness. Okay. I was getting nervous.
Yeah, that's you. See.
Okay, good.
There we go. Welcome to the Matsies. Welcome. Good morning, Mr. Stafford. Welcome.
Morning.
We're just going to wait a few minutes for everyone to join. We still have a few folks that are trying to get online. Please excuse me for a second while I go and check the website and make sure there's no last minute registrants that I need to help get online. Hold on one second. Good morning, Mr. Benson.
Good morning, Dave.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
We just give it a few more minutes just for any last latecomers. Okay, well, let's get started. And if we have any folks that come in, I'll take a moment and help them join. But I just wanted to welcome you all out to this annual meeting this morning. Let me share the screen with you. If you all can just let me know if you can see what I'm seeing. Does everyone see the presentation in blue?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. Wonderful. Well, let's begin. I'll go to the agenda here. We'll just welcome everyone. We sure appreciate you taking time out this morning for this annual meeting of the Plantation Golf Villas 2 Homeowners Association here at Grand Palms Resort. I am David Nelson. I'm the HOA board member of the HOA and also the treasurer, or excuse me, the secretary of the HOA. We have Margaret McGooey. Miss Margaret, if you could just wave hello to everyone. Who's
Hello.
a HOA board member as well. And we have Marcia Lundy on as well, who's a board member. Marcia,
Hi. Good
thank you.
morning.
And unfortunately, Blaine Lillenquist is unable to make it. He's another board member. And Rodney Brown had a medical emergency this morning. He's okay. Everything's okay.
Oh.
But he just had to run quickly, and hopefully he's going to be able to get back and join us. Who's the other
Okay.
board member? So we have Josh Benson on the Zoom with us as well, who is going to help us with our financials and discuss the financials with us and the budgets. And then I have Randy Woolman with us, who's the executive assistant who keeps me straight. I need all the help I can get. And so she's here with us to do that. And then I also have, we have Kathy Jameson on the Zoom call with us as well, who's one of the property management team with us. So that's the introductions. Just wanted to make sure that everyone received a notification of the meeting. We sent it out via email and via letter. And just wanted to make sure, was there anyone that had any difficulties receiving the information? Oh, we have the Matsies. Yes, you're on mute. Do you have a question? Please, yeah, unmute and feel free to. Okay, normally if you have the screen optimized to its fullest, if you move the cursor down to the bottom of the screen, a menu pops up and there's a little microphone. And if you click on that microphone, it should unmute you.
It's at the bottom left of your screen if you move your mouse. Dave, it might be easier for her if you unshare your screen. That might be her issue.
Oh, maybe let me do that. Does that help? Maybe you can see. So if you move to the bottom of the window, there's a pop-up menu that comes up. Do you see that? Oh, looks like you're unmuted. No? But we can't hear you. Just saying, making sure that I can't, I wish I could unmute for you, but I can't help.
Mute. There.
There,
Is that any
yes.
better?
Fantastic.
Yay!
We got it.
Finally. Anyway, Cynthia Ellis here with the Matsies.
Oh,
because-
fantastic. Fantastic.
Unfortunately, I did not receive, I was able to register yesterday, but I have not received anything about being able to log into this meeting today. Not an issue for us right now, just afterwards, but there's nothing in my email directing me how to log in.
Huh. Okay.
But it's okay, because I'm with the Matsies.
Well, we appreciate you joining the Matsies to be here.
And we're formidable.
Thank you. Wonderful. Well, we appreciate that. Okay, well, let me share the screen once again. Okay, everyone sees the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so according to the proxy count that I have and those on the call with this, there are 47 of the 60 owners represented here. So we have much more than a majority. So we have a quorum. So this is an official meeting. So we're excited to be able to do that and be able to conduct business and be able to move forward with meeting. So we have property management report. Well, let me go to that. Really of course, construction is on everyone's minds. We have a lot of construction going on around us. Really, there's no updates that I have other than later on, we'll talk about how we used to maintain the waterways and the ponds and all. And now we've gone out to the developers who actually, that's on their land, and they've actually taken over responsibility like they should. And that helps us. But we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But we have construction on both sides of the property. Directly behind this association is Lennar, the Lennar development. I believe they're calling it Beach Village. And so, of course, farther down behind buildings 200, 202, all the way up to 208 to 210, there's a lake. Can't even, pond is a misnomer. The big lake has been developed there, and that's primarily where their drainage is going to be. I've had some owners ask me, what can we do to screen our condos from the new neighbors? And that is definitely in the works. We've been talking a lot about that, trying to decide what type of landscaping options we have. And we'll be talking more about that later. Really not a whole lot to say this year until the construction's finished. So we really need to know where and what they're going to be up to. So, and they're about a month behind Beverly Homes. So I'm guessing here the next month we'll start maybe seeing some homes built back there. Another question that was asked of me is what type of construction is it? Is it condominiums or what have you? No, it's residential homes, similar to what's been developed farther west by Lennar. I imagine it's going to be similar. So that's
Dave,
really,
I don't mean to interrupt. Can you enable recording for participants, please?
I'm sorry.
Can you enable recording the meeting for participants?
I do not know how to do that.
Okay, when I try to record it, it states that I need to ask the host to enable that feature.
Okay, well, give me a second and I'll try to do that for you. Let's see.
Don't touch nothing. Don't touch nothing. No, because she'll steal it. Steal it. Yeah. Yes.
Actually, the dialogue states to ask the host to give you permission to record.
Dave, you're on mute, but I believe there's a drop down on the record. Similar to the share screen, there's a drop down. You can click that and it should say enable participants to record. I believe that's where it is. I haven't done that before, but.
Put it on your laptop. No. It's in here. It needs to be stuck. Mommy.
I was on mute. Okay, sorry about that. Looks like I would have to stop the meeting and restart it in order to enable that. It's not giving me the ability to enable it. So Mr. Stafford, I'll share this with you as soon as we're done with the meeting here. So you'll have that available.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so there has been some relocation. You have seen a few areas, especially in front of 210, where some utilities were relocated or moved due to the construction. And of course, that's part of the issues with the Wi-Fi that we've had and with cable and other utilities, power going out and coming on, has really been those relocation of all the utility lines for the construction. So hopefully that's done. Hopefully that's taken care of and we won't have any more issues with that. And then of course that none of that was paid by HOA funds to do any of that. Okay, we have the Wi-Fi network. What I'll be doing is I'll be adding to the minutes of the meetings that we'll be sending out to all the owners. I've had some, of course, there's a number of new owners that have come into the development recently that may not have this information. So I'll be sending and sharing that information about the private owner network that we have, Palm 78, and how to log into that. Now, once again, what Spectrum has asked us. Oh, let me share the screen. Thanks, Josh, for helping me on that. Okay, everyone see the screen now? Okay, so with Spectrum, we've had some issues. We've had some who have tried to wired plug into the AP, which is the the antenna in your unit, it kind of looks like a big smoke detector that Spectrum installed in the units. That's an antenna basically for the Wi-Fi network. And on the top of that is a plug, and some people have tried to access that AP with it through that plug, and Spectrum's asked us not to do that. In fact, they've warned us if they do find an AP that someone's plugged a router into, that they'll shut it down because it interferes with the main router that we have for the entire network. So anyway, just to make mention of that, we had more APs installed. I imagine in the future we'll be adding even more antennas into the condos, as you can see. But please, no routers plugged into the APs. And once again, I'll include that in the letter that's part of the minutes to the meeting. On curbs and gutter, we've been doing a lot. Of course, this is building 204. This isn't in our association, but we just wanted to show you an example of the curbing before and the after. Really, not only does it look nice, but really there's a purpose to it beyond just looking nice. The purpose is to help the road drain in major storm events. And we were pleasantly surprised as to how well it drained through Ian just passed by, and our new drainage system really was effective. It really helped tremendously. And the ultimate goal of that curb and guttering is to keep the water out of the condos on major flood events. And that's really helped quite a bit. We'll be continuing in this association to be doing more curbing and guttering here, just actually here in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. We'll be able to begin to do that sometime in November at the latest. We'll be trying to add some more curbing and guttering to try to move forward. Now, we won't be able to finish all the year because it's quite expensive, but we'll be trying to do more curbing and guttering in front of the buildings. In fact, we'll probably be working on the rest of 212. You see at the end of 212, we stopped, and we'll start where we started again, and maybe probably do some of 214 as well. And 214 is the last building that we have to do the curb and guttering in this association. Okay. Of course, there's been lots of inflation. We'll be talking about that and trying to talk about how the association, how we as a board have been trying to cut costs as much as we possibly can to do that. And we'll talk about that more in the director's report portion as we introduce where we are year to date and look at the numbers and so on and so forth, and talk about next year's budget. Insurance has been a major cost impact to our budget. We've seen in the associations in the resort as high as 100+% increase in insurance. Now, of course, that's not impacted us here. It's relatively about a 20%, 25% increase, which is still extremely high, but it's nowhere near what we're seeing in the other associations on some of their insurances that we, of course, are required to carry. So insurance is a major cost. It's probably a third of our budget goes to just to insurance. So what are some of the ways that as homeowners, you can all help in keeping that insurance cost as low as we possibly can? Well, the HOA's role and responsibility of that are the decks. We're taking care of the decks, especially those where there's water intrusion. The decks are attached to the buildings. Of course, they're away from the buildings, but they're attached to the buildings, and some of the older buildings, especially, those have been pulling away, and it's given water a chance to incur into the building and through the brick. And we've been trying to take care and address those, and we'll be continuing to address those. We're trying to address the biggest issues that we're aware of first, but we'll make it. Also, the vent pipe boots on the roofs. Let me show a photo of that. Let me take a second to come up here. Okay, in this association, we have roofs that are going to be starting to be replaced here in about 3 to 4 years, I think is the earliest. Can everybody see that picture? Okay, on top of the roof, anytime there's a vent from any of the plumbing that goes up through the roof, there's a boot that goes over the top of that that's supposed to seal off that vent And those vents we're finding have deteriorated to where they're allowing water to enter into the roofs as well. So we're going to be repairing those. And unfortunately, those don't last as long as the shingles do. We replace those vent boots along with the skylights every time we replace the roofs. The skylights seem to last as long as the roofs do, but those vent boots do not. They deteriorate over time, with all the sun and moisture. And so they start breaking down and they start allowing water to penetrate into the roofs and cause water issues. So we're looking at those vent pipe boots right now. You may see someone up on the roof here within the next couple of months, between now and the end of the year at least. And that's what they're doing, is they're checking for skylight leaks around the flashing of the skylights, and also the vent boot replacements if needed. Okay, also now we are trying to save up some money in our reserves for this. We're just starting this. Is that in the earlier buildings and other associations, the brick has, due to the age of the buildings, either the building settling or just what have you, or just the wind-driven rains from the storms that come through, the mortar in the brick starts deteriorating. And so let me show you a picture of that. I'll just give you an example so you can see what I mean. And so the professional term for this is point and tuck the brick, meaning they go back to all the mortar joints, and anywhere where there's a mortar joint that is open, that's lost its mortar, they go and close that up and seal it. So for example, here's a good example. This happens to do with the lintel over the door, but also you see the mortar missing there. So they'll come in and look at all the mortar joints and come back in and seal all the mortar that's missing on the brick. And then once that's done, they'll seal around all the doors and windows. And then once that's done, they come in and they put a sealer on the brick itself.
Hey, Dave, we're not seeing that picture. We're just seeing the water droplet.
Oh,
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that.
well, let me try again.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry I was late.
Good morning, hope you're okay.
I'm still alive.
Rodney, glad you joined us. Can everybody see the picture now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you see where some of the caulking around the door here as well, that's starting to deteriorate and break down. So the point and tuck, the professionals come in and they seal all of those areas, the mortar holes, and reseal and caulk around the doors and the windows. And then we come in and put a sealer over the entire brick surface, the face of the brick. And that really helps prevent water intrusion, especially during these big storms like we just had. Okay, now, can you see the water again?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, now on that future edition, and it's going to be a couple of years down the road before we start in our association, and building 210 is the oldest building in our association, so we'll probably be starting there. It's just, unless there's some finding to where we find a building that's in worse condition. So we're asking you all as owners, there are some original windows out there that are now 20 plus years old that are starting to deteriorate as well. So from an owner's responsibility, we're asking you to look at your doors and your windows and start saving up money to help replace those to vinyl windows before we do the waterproofing. It really doesn't help to seal the old windows and then we seal the building and then we come back and replace the window and we've just undone the sealing around the windows and the doors. So we'll be talking more about that later on in future years, but just telling you the direction that we're heading from a future standpoint on projects to help with that. We spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a year as an association in water damage remediation. And so it's pretty much an investment. We seal the building and that'll hopefully reduce or eliminate those costly water damage repairs. Okay, some other ways we can make sure that insurance claims don't happen, because of course, water damage, if it becomes too large, we have to put in a claim. Water heaters, AC condensation lines. Okay, there's been a lot of confusion about AC condensation lines. Well, let me show you a photo of that. And please let me know if you see that. Okay, so when your AC is installed, the exchanger up in the attic, mostly it's up in our attics. We're in a closet on the first floors. There's a pan underneath that, or there's some piping that come out to where all the condensation, when the water condenses in the AC unit,
We're in the courtroom.
it runs into those condensation lines and to the exterior of the building. And those are in the master deed bylaws considered limited common elements, meaning they're the owner's responsibility. And even though the pipe may be shared between owners, between floors, it's still the owner's responsibility to make sure they're clean and they drain properly. You can see some plugged condensation lines there. So we're asking for you, and we suggest at least once a year, you make sure your condensation lines are cleared. You can easily call an AC professional and they can come in and do that for you. Normally they'll come in with this modified shop vac type system, and they'll stick it on the end of that condensation line and just suck it right out and clean out all the mold and algae and buildup that happens over the year in the condensation lines. Okay, secondary condensation lines. So you really have a primary condensation line that runs to the backs of the buildings, but also there's the secondary, which is the emergency condensation line that runs to the front of the buildings. So this is building 203. That's not in our association either, but it just to show you that up here, like it's not actually, could have get you a better picture. There's a condensation line that ends right there above that window that drips down onto the roof, that drips down onto the pavement. So if you're seeing dripping lines in front of your building, that is a red flag, meaning that there are some condensation lines plugged on the primary lines and now are backed up to the secondary or emergency line. And if we don't get this unplugged soon, it'll flood over the pan and start causing ceiling damage and damages to the units. So just wanted to mention that. Okay, some other issues, we've talked about windows and doors, water heaters. We've seen 20-plus-year-old water heaters in condos. And even if the condo isn't used every so often, that water heater is still there. And it's not a matter of if it's going to burst, it's when. And we recommend 10 years. If you have a water heater that's older than 10 years, even if it looks like it's in great condition, it's just water issue waiting to happen. And we've had water heaters go that have caused over $100,000+ worth of damage just from 140-gallon water heater. And of course, that's an insurance claim. And anytime we have an insurance claim, then our insurance premiums go up. So we're asking owners to please take a look at those water heaters, take a look at their windows and doors, making sure there's no areas where water can penetrate. Also the plumbings, supply lines. Most of us have refrigerators with ice makers in them. So there's a supply line, a water supply line to that refrigerator, behind the refrigerator that kind of goes sight unseen. We need to make sure and check those supply lines there. We've had those give away and cause a lot of water damage. On the commodes, there's a picture here on the supply line for the commode, the toilet. Hopefully you can see that. Now this one's braided, which is what we recommend. We recommend the steel braided water line. But also you see at the top here, you see a nut that is a plastic nut. Now we've seen even over the years where the rubber deteriorates, we've seen these nuts split open and cause water damage as well. So we want to make sure and watch those closely. Also, of course, we have supply lines to disposals underneath your kitchen sink, to the dishwasher, sink drains, so on and so forth. In another association, we had one owner that his wax seal around the base of his commode was leaking. Of course, didn't see it at all. It was leaking into the unit below. It leaked in and caused well over close to $10,000 worth of damages before we realized what was leaking from that commode, from the toilet water seal. So if we could just as owners, look out for these things. That would help a lot in helping keep our insurance costs down. Okay, any questions on any of the insurance from water standpoint? Okay, fires. Now, those of us who've been around a while, we've sent out the important letters. The letter is important information. We'll show that here in a minute, and I'll include those with the minutes of the meeting as well, and also the HO6 versus HOA insurance, meaning the homeowner insurance versus the HOA insurance, and where the differences are. But also fires. We've had some fires in another association. Not in our association, we've actually had fires. The fires caused over $1 million worth of the damage to condos there. And there's fires that started in two ways. One was a wiring by the owner. They thought they were an electrician and they wired a ceiling fan, and that wasn't wired properly and it started a fire. But also in our bathrooms, we have these vent fans. If we do not clean the vent fans, they can collect with lint and so on and so forth. And if the motor seizes up, it will combust. It will get warm enough to light that lint on fire. And that's how the other fire started. So we're asking us all to look at not only our exhaust fan vents and clean those and maintain those, but also the dryers. Now, it is the homeowner's responsibility to clean the dryer vent all the way to the exterior of the building. You see this? This is, we call that the bird cage, where it's full of lint. That's more than likely means that the whole dryer line, vent line, is full of that lint. And that's a fire hazard. That's just a fire waiting to happen. So we need to ask you as owners to please help with that. Okay, let's look at this letter. Everybody see the letter?
Does that include replacing the termination? I mean, the benches.
That does including the bird cage, yes.
Well, I think, Dave, what you meant is the bird cage is a homeowner's responsibility. You don't have to replace it every year if it's in good shape.
Right.
The company who cleans it may take that off if they, depending on how they do the cleaning, then they'll put it back on when they're done.
Okay, does everyone see the letter? The important, it says entitled important with an exclamation point. Okay, well, this is a letter that we sent out previously. We'll be sending it out again and just helping educate the owners as to the responsibilities that owners have in helping us keep insurance costs down and really to help us keep it safe. Firewall inspections, those have been completed. So that number one has actually been done. Okay, bathroom fans. Recently, 2 bathroom exhaust fans seized up and one caused a fire. That's where part of the million plus dollars worth of damage has. Okay, if they're worn out, so homeowner's responsibility to replace them. They're actually pretty easy to replace. I should have had a sample with me to show you, but really it has a plug, like a normal plug into an outlet. You unplug it, unscrew it off, a couple of bolts, pull it out, and then you can put a new one in its place. And they're only $50 or so. If you want
any of those units resort-owned units?
I'm sorry?
Were any of the units where the fire originated, were they resort-owned units?
They were privately owned and resort-owned units, both.
Thank you.
Now, I can assure you that since this has all happened, that all resort-owned units, we've gone in and maintained this, and we'll maintain it. We are on top of this now, and we do that often. In fact, at least once a year, if not multiple times a year, we do these things. Dryer vents, we talked about that. Here's just a couple, names. You can pretty much anybody that you trust that you can find. ThoroClean, there's DuraClean, there's Healthy Home. There's a number of companies out there that will clean your dryer vents for you, and also your fan vents as well. Fire extinguishers. Okay, all the fire extinguishers that you see in the common areas, outside of the building, inside the foyers, all of those are inspected and recharged every year. But it's the homeowner responsibility for their own extinguishers inside of their condos to have them looked at and inspected every year. And Pi Barker is the one that we recommend. I mean, I imagine there are others out there as well, but Pi Barker is a reputable company. And there's a number to contact them to have them come and check your extinguishers inside your condos. Smoke detectors, the same thing. All the smoke detectors in the foyers, the common areas, we inspect as a property management company. But the smoke detectors inside your condos need to be inspected as well. We suggest once a year. And also they should be interconnected, meaning if one goes off in one end of the condo, they all go off. They all sound. Attic space, not living space, not necessarily really applies to this association, I don't think, but really anytime owners have gone in and built out attic space and made it livable space, that's against code, and we ask you not to do that. Okay, and HO6 responsibility, I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to ask now Rodney's here if he can maybe take over and talk about the insurance, the different insurance coverages.
Sure. If you could put that letter up for me. There's two different concepts that we need to talk about. The first is what you as the owner own yourself versus what all of the owners you would own in common. So let me first talk about what you own yourself. In the master deed, there are three definitions that are important. One is called the dwelling, and that's essentially the inside of your unit. And one of the industry terms they use for that is you own everything paint to paint. The sheetrock is in common. The floor and the subfloor is in common, but the paint and the carpet and everything inside you own. So if you want to change out your cabinets, you can change out your cabinets. You own those. If you want to change out your bathtub, you can. You own that. The second one is called a limited common element. Dave mentioned that earlier, and that is any servicing lines such as electrical lines, plumbing lines, drain lines that service your unit, you own. And it's a limited common element, and you would be responsible for those. The third definition are common elements. That's everything else. That's the slab, the roof, the sheetrock on the exterior walls of your dwelling. The sheetrock on the interior, you would own, but the ones on the exterior where you're bounding another unit or maybe the ceiling is a common element. Now, typically, the HOA is responsible to repair common elements. Every condominium project can have their own definitions of what's a common element in a dwelling and a limited common element. Insurance companies don't try to look at our docs and only insure what you own or what the association has in common. So when there's typically you would think if there was a major loss, the HOA would cover the common elements and your HO6 would cover whatever you own. But since the insurance companies can't write a different policy for every complex out there, they have what they call a standard form. Their standard form typically includes a lot of what you would consider to be common elements. So, for example, in the fires that we just had, the insurance company replaced carpet and paint and cabinets and interior sheetrock walls, even though that wasn't a part of the common elements. Since it's a part of the insurance policy and the association has to pay for it, then the insurance company has to give us that coverage. So when we're talking about what you have to repair anything that's a dwelling or a limited common element that serves your unit. If there's a major loss, such as a fire or such as a flood, then of course the association will make available to each owner whatever the common policy covers. I would say the crux of this is the association maintains that common element policy, and you don't have to worry about that. But that policy does not cover things inside your condominium. Specifically, it doesn't cover furniture. It doesn't cover appliances that aren't attached. For example, the refrigerator and the washer and the dryer are not covered. It doesn't cover any personal belongings that you have in the unit. In our recent fires and a couple of floods, we found that about half of our owners did not have what's called an HO6 policy. H stands for homeowner, and the 06 means it's a condominium. If you aren't paying for a separate homeowner HO6 policy, you need to consult with your insurance agent and procure one. If there is a major loss, you may be having to come out of pocket for some of the repairs. Or if there's a loss that's limited to your condominium, such as a theft or something, the common policy would have no coverage for you. I know this can be a little bit confusing. So does anyone have questions about that?
I do. Somewhat related here. Where is the distinction between resort-owned units or timeshare units with regard to the insurance coverage in which the interiors are covered and this, the policy that
There is no difference. The resort-owned units have to purchase their own HO6 out of their own pocket, just like every other owner would have to. So there's no difference whatsoever.
Okay, so that is billed separately and is in no way funded through HOA revenues.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
The resort-owned units have the same rights as every other unit and also the same responsibilities. So they pay the same maintenance fee. They're responsible for the same repairs. They're responsible to, and as Dave mentioned, when it's time to clean out the ductwork, they have to contract on their own to do that. If the condensation line clogs up, they have to pay to fix the condensation. So they have the same rights and the same responsibilities as every other owner.
So the resort-owned units, for example, in phase 2 here, you have a total of 60 units, correct?
Yes.
2, 10, 12, 14, 16.
Correct.
16 has 12 units rather than 16. But
Correct.
So what you had mentioned before that the timeshare people are also members of our association and pay their maintenance fees in addition to the same amounts that we pay here, that we're billed for.
That's essentially correct. The timeshares, in a timeshare, there's a separate association that governs the timeshares, but for every unit owned inside your association, that timeshare association has to pay the same amount of dues for each of those units. So if you're paying $1,200 a year, and I know that's not the right figure, it's just an example. If you're paying $1,200 a year for your unit, then they have to pay $1,200 a year for their unit. But they get for that $1,200, they get exactly the same services that you get.
And so that is what is part of the assessment to timeshare owners. For example, they're $80 or $800 a year or $1,000 a year.
Yeah, but that $1,000 a year is times 52 owners. So they pay, that association pays your association what it's supposed to, and then it has additional dollars to handle housekeeping and some things that they have to provide.
So essentially, the monthly amount is paid per unit.
Oh, yeah, it's quarterly in your association, but yes, it's paid per unit. Any other questions? Okay, Dave, toss it back to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Rodney. Appreciate that. Okay, any other questions about the fire? We've talked a lot about water damage and fire damage. Really, what we're asking the owners to do is just to be responsible owners and to go in and do what they need to do to make sure that we're all safe. And of course, that will make sure that we don't have an insurance claim. Insurance is only supposed to be there when we absolutely need it. Of course, we want it, we need it. In fact, according to the bylaws and the master deed, we need it. We're required to have it. But it can get expensive, especially if we have claims against it. Okay, rules and regulations.
I'm sorry, could you explain again the policy that is relevant to PGV2 only? What does they cover? The exterior building, the fascia, the roof, etc.
I can take that.
Okay.
The answer is yes. The policy on the common elements covers everything in the master deed that is defined as a common element. And that does include the roof and the fascia and the brick and the foundation and all of those things. But what I was trying to point out is, even though the association doesn't own in common things like your cabinets, because the insurance company has a standard form that covers those cabinets, and because we have to pay the premium for that standard form that covers those cabinets, if there's a major loss and the association has the insurance money to give to you to fix those cabinets, of course, we're going to give that money to you to fix those cabinets and any other owner who was damaged. So the insurance coverage doesn't exactly line up with the ownership, which it really works to your advantage in a major loss because it gives you extra dollars to replace things that you actually own without you having to pay the insurance for those extra items. Does that help?
Yeah, so there's only one policy in common then that covers exterior building elements and limited common elements.
That's designed to cover the common elements, but also in operation ends up covering a lot of the limited common elements and the dwellings, although it's not 100%. So I need to reinforce that everyone needs to have their own HO6 policy, and you should consult an insurance broker for that to make sure you get the correct coverage.
Well, I've always had HO6 and with high liabilities and coverage as well, but
sure.
And of course we'll continue to, but what I'm trying to get at is there's only one policy that we share the expense for in common, correct? And that is
for casualty insurance. There's also a liability policy and a directors and officers insurance policy, which are all required by our documents that we carry. So there are different policies, but one casualty or fire policy that covers the common elements.
okay.
All right, good questions. Any other questions? Okay, we're gonna send the latest copy of the rules and regulations. It hasn't changed. There's not been any recent changes to it, but just once again, out to those new owners that may not have those. There's just been a couple of issues on the rules and regulations. Number one, we need to have key access to your condo. It's not that we're going to try to intrude. We want to protect and preserve we want to make sure that your privacy is intact. That's not the goal for us to enter your units. The only time we enter units is in case of emergencies and pest control. And of course, well, here recently we've had to maybe do some Wi-Fi AP work, some wiring and so on and so forth. But only in emergencies, those are kept secured, but we do need to have access to those.
Another example of that, Dave, would be if there's a water leak in your unit while you're out of town or something, you would give us access without having to break down your door to get the water leak stopped.
Exactly. Great example. Also, if we don't have your current information for whatever reason, I know email addresses change frequently and sometimes cell phone numbers change, what have you, please let us know. We'd love to keep your information current so we can make sure and get the information that we send out periodically to you. Okay, decks and patios. We just want to make sure from just a aesthetic standpoint. It's taking me a second to load these pictures. Can everybody see that picture?
Yes.
Okay, here's the deck. This is a private owner. Once again, just, you can tell by the appearances, of course, that impacts the real estate value of all of our property. And we wouldn't want to have that. And that's not, if this were just a one-off special event, weekend, and then it was over, that was great. But this has been this way for a while. So we've had to make mention to those owners that, hey, we need to have those cleaned up. Also, of course, as owners, we're responsible for tenants if we lease our condos to other people as well. So just ask for your help in maintaining a nice looking project. Okay, so I mentioned briefly, made reference anyway to a couple of items that we've talked about cutting costs. We've been trying to look at every line item in our budget, every expenditure to try to reduce as much as we can, because of course, especially these days with everything else is going up, we want to save costs as much as possible. So we've ended the pond management contract since we used to before. We as a HOA, in conjunction with all the other HOAs in the resort, we had several agreements to take care and maintain the ponds. We no longer do that because we've talked to the developers now, meaning Beverly Homes, Lennar, the home builders, and they have taken on that responsibility. So we've been able to eliminate that contract. Reduce Platte Boulevard maintenance. So the entrance to the resort in general, all the HOAs in the resort have helped contribute to Platte Boulevard and try to keep it clean and mowed and properly. And Rodney's done an outstanding job of going out and reaching out to those in the area, especially the new developments like Beverly Homes and DR Horton on the other side of Platte Boulevard. And they're now taking over cleaning up and maintaining their portions of Platte Boulevard. So of course we can eliminate that expense out of our budgets for doing that.
These are not common elements. These are not properties that are owned by.
They are not, but we all.
Why are we paying for it?
We are paying for having an area that's worth living in.
We are sharing the cost of, we have never paid 100%. We're sharing the cost with other homeowners. So Deerfield should have been developed with a master HOA. It was developed in the 70s. That concept was relatively new. They did not put in a master HOA. So we're working in a cooperative arrangement with other HOAs because at this point, it would be almost impossible to try to create a master HOA and subject all the other HOAs to it. So this is a cooperative thing.
Yeah, same with what used to be the golf courses. Of course, there's no longer the golf course to mow, so we've eliminated that expense. New security camera vendor. The original vendor for the security systems that we installed came back with they dramatically increased their prices. And so we went out looking, and we have a new vendor now that is a third of the cost of what we were paying before. So we're excited about that. And also a new pond bank maintenance. Once again, I attribute Rodney to this, going out and talking to Beverly Homes on the one side, and we're talking on Lennar on the other to make sure that they are taking care of the ponds and also any grasses and associated. Now, behind our association between Lennar, we have seawalls there. But also there's some riprap, some drainage, and so on and so forth that we've worked with them on helping them take over those costs as part of their development, of course, that used to be part of our expense this year.
Where exactly is the property line?
It's about 15 feet behind your condo, not behind your patio, but behind your condo. And that can vary.
So
from the brick exterior.
Yeah.
So, and once again, for future, we can't really do anything today because the construction hasn't finished yet. But as soon as they've done what they've done, then we'll come back and talk about screening and landscaping and trying to improve the view and the screening between us and our new neighbors.
Amen.
So
How
All
long
right.
have they owned that, that parcel that they're developing behind us?
How long have they owned the property?
Yes.
I'm not
Lennar
sure.
that's developing.
I'm not sure exactly when Lennar purchased. I'm not sure when the closing dates were. I imagine a couple of years ago.
So they've owned up to the property line for at least a couple of years, which again is,
That's a total guess. I do not know. I guess we could go into the records and, go to the county records and look and see the exact dates, but I do not. That's just a guess. Okay, so major budget impacts. Of course, we've talked about insurance enough and the increases there, water damage, we talked about those as well. The age of the buildings requiring more maintenance. Service contracts, we need to touch on that as well, of course, with the increases, with an inflationary increases everywhere across not only the world, it's not only just our area. Anytime there's services provided, those salaries or wages had to be increased to be competitive. For example, our security team used to make $9–10 an hour. Now in order to maintain that, they're $18 to $20 an hour. So they've gone up 100% on their wage increases. And really that's just, once again, to stay competitive in the area. Another example of that, just widespread, doesn't really impact our area, but there's Amazon just advertised that seasonal help. They're starting at $19 an hour in their seasonal help, and are offering a $3,000 sign-on bonus. Almost makes me want to go start working for Amazon for a little bit, but so those are the competitive wages that we have to compete against. So that impacts the budgets, and you'll see that as well. So I'm going to turn the time over to Josh Benson. I'm going to pull up the budget information and have him help us walk us through those numbers.
could I ask how exactly such service-related wages, for example, security, as you mentioned, especially given 100% increase, some of the lawn maintenance and landscaping is done by the resort. How exactly is that divvied up between the resort, timeshare units, our HOA? In other words, what portion of that $19 an hour do we pay?
It is really I'll take security as a good example. Security is paid by all of the resorts. So all of the condos in the resort per door, per condo pays an amount. So if it's $100, it's divided out $100 among all the doors evenly is how it's being paid
Per unit then?
per condo.
Okay, so if it's $1,000, it's divided between, just for a round number, it's divided between 517 units. Is that correct?
Correct. Now also,
Yeah,
let me add, there's also some services that they do for the resort pay for as well. So the resort is contributing to some of that amount as well. All right,
Dave,
Josh,
do you want me to share my screen or you want me to just do it off of this?
can either way, whatever you'd like. Here,
Um,
I'll stop sharing so you can share if you like.
and then you'll just have to allow me to share.
It should be set now to be able to share.
I'm on my laptop and not my work computer. This is so this is I know we're already out of time, but this is the details of the year-to-date performance, the current budget, and the 2023 budget. So let me just review this with you real quick, get some questions, answer some questions, and then we'll move forward.
Josh, you may want to zoom in.
Zoom in. not sure I can. Hold on just a second here. Like I said, I am on my laptop. Instead of,
Down bottom right of your
I know, but
spreadsheet.
mine's not. There we go. Just a second. Let me fix that, Dave. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Try that again. Yeah.
We can read it, Josh. That's okay. Don't worry about it.
Sorry, it's kind of weird on my end right now.
No worries.
I'll try to explain if for those who can't see very well. This column right here, column E, that's our year-to-date expenditure. This is through August. This is when we created the budgets. These next two columns, that's what we anticipate expending through the end of the year. And then this is the total, column I. Column N is our 2020 budget. And then column O is our over under. So up top here, we have our assessment fees and our late fees for the year. There's only a couple of individuals charged late fees at currently, but we're on pace to meet our budget exactly for 2022. As far as expenses go, I wanted to point out the biggest one that we had, and that was the insurance. So this line item right here, we have spent $48,000 on insurance this year. Our budget coming in, which we anticipated increases, was $33,500. So there was a massive increase to the insurance that Dave has mentioned and Rodney has talked about earlier. That's a huge increase, huge increase.
Was any of that the result of claims?
The claims we had were in other associations. So this association didn't get tagged with that. But as you see the cost of construction go up and losses around the world go up, that directly impacts our insurance.
Well, and also the value, the real estate
Yeah.
value has gone up. And so that the premiums will go up to match the value increase.
And that's a huge deal. You know, if something was valued at, a $2 million building and now it's valued at a $3 million building.
Or put it to this association, your 2-bedroom condos 3 years ago were probably going for $85,000 or $90,000. We've seen some listed at $160,000. So that's a tremendous increase in value that has to be insured.
Right. So that's your biggest increase there. Let me go through a couple of the other items here for the end of 2022. Dave had talked about a couple of the projects that we're doing. We've got some curb and guttering projects that we're going to be doing hopefully before the end of this year. That's where we're budgeted. And so we've slated some excess money to be there. Most of our other items, we are under budget or right on budget. If it's a service contract, that, those are right on line. So those haven't changed. One thing that we started doing a few years ago is to have a 1% contingency. So this 1% contingency is allows us to hold excess money just in the event that we go over budget. And that's a common standard HOA budgeting tactic. So that full $2,400 that we had budgeted for last year will be used and applied to something like the insurance. By the end of this year, excuse me, we have contributed and had budgeted to contribute $340 to our reserve fund. That's for our roofs and parking lots and things of that nature. Even still, the HOA was low on funds, and so the developer loaned interest-free $19,000 to the association. And obviously majority of that was for, covering the insurance costs and things. By the end of this year, our change in fund balance will be was estimated to be 3,100. All right. So if there's any questions on that, we can go through those. Let me move this over here. All right, so going forward, let me get us to our 2023 budget, and I know we're out of time. 2023 budget, let's go through the contracts first. Our maintenance contract we have as a slight 3% increase. Or excuse me, that's the repairs and maintenance that we're estimating 3% increase. Let's see some of the other major items. One of the things that I'm doing here now is for the trash and janitorial and foyer contract. That is a contract with the resort. I'm splitting that up instead of having that consolidated together. Our landscape maintenance contract increased under 3%. Our routine ground maintenance, we had it at 20,000 last year, and that's been decreased by about 25%. And that was what Dave was talking about earlier, not contributing to the golf course mowing and things. So you can directly see the decrease in cost there. Our security contract, we were able to negotiate that a little bit lower this year. So that's slightly lower. Management and accounting contract remained the same. That was constant, so no increase there. We had this is about a 6% increase on our insurance premiums. And that takes, that's based on actual from prior year. And then the one other increase that we had, let's see, two others here. For the cable and TV, we're anticipating an increase as well. So that's another 5% increase. And then our telephone and internet. So that was the internet that we charge, I believe, beginning of last year was $37 a month for your internet per month. Now it's $38. So it was a $1 increase per month. Our reserve fund for next year, we're contributing $16,700. And then our debt obligation, this is a repayment of that loan that we've taken out. That's an interest-free loan. We anticipate repaying that as fast as possible, but that's $6,600 for next year. So going up to the assessment fees, that did increase our assessment fees just under 7%, which is lower than inflation.
Settle down.
Annual inflation, it's lower than the annual inflation, but your quarterly assessments would be $1,075. At the end of this year, we anticipate, so next year, let's see, at the end of this year, our reserve fund, to note, we anticipate having 46,000 in our reserve fund, and that's in preparation again for next year. We have some parking lots to seal and stripe, and then we've got a few other major expenses coming up, and that the reserve fund will just gradually go up and down just to make sure that those major expenses, I believe the roof, the last time we spent, Dave, you might remember better than I, but the roof was around $48,000 when we replaced
For one building.
for a whole building. So they're expensive. So trying to make sure that that is funded properly. Any other, I know we're out of time, but any other questions?
Could we receive a copy of this?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you, Josh. Appreciate the help on that. Now, I guess we need to make some motions there. Motion to Do I have a motion to accept the budget as the 2023 budget as presented by Josh Benson?
Accept.
Okay, anyone second the motion?
Yes.
Thank
Second.
you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, appears to be unanimous. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Okay, does everyone see the PowerPoint again?
Yes.
Okay, Rodney, I'm going to turn it over to you for elections, if you don't mind.
Okay, can you remind me who's being,
It's myself, Marcia, and myself for up for reelection.
okay, so this time the board would like to place into nomination Dave Nelson and Marcia Lundy to continue to serve, but the floor is open for further nominations to serve on the board of directors.
Thanks to both of you for taking the time to run and to do this in your own time. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I have a question. First of all, let me state I have no interest in any of that, but what units do you personally own?
I assume that's directed at me. I am an officer of two different corporations that own a number of units in the association. It would take me just a second to call up those exact ones, but if you'd like me to, and we'll take a second and I'll call them up.
Which two corporations?
Craftmaster Inc. and Resort Development Company of America.
Well, I can give you the number if you'd like.
How many units are owned within the 60?
Okay, there are 28 timeshare units within the 60. There are 6 that are owned by Craftmaster, and there are 7 that are owned by RDCA.
So I'll further disclose that I'm on the board of directors of all of those timeshare associations. And by virtue of that fact, I represent them as their proxy.
Okay, so he's the proxy. Yeah, okay.
And then plus there's 3 that is managed, 3 units in the association that is managed by the resort. And so actually we carry their proxies as well. So out of the 60 units, there are 44 that we represent.
So you always carry the 2/3 majority.
Assuming that's 2/3.
Yes,
Okay.
40,
Well, we're still open
more
to nominations.
than 2/3 of 60, yes.
Okay, I'd like to, having given everyone sufficient time, I'd like to hear a nomination, a motion that the nominations be closed. Otherwise, we sit here for a long time.
I move the nominations be closed.
Second. I think I,
Second.
okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Since there are 2 vacant seats and 2 people running, I would like to hear a nomination that we fill the vacancies with Dave Nelson and Marcia Lundy by acclamation. Do I hear a motion?
I
Yes.
move that we do what you said.
Okay. Is
Wait,
there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Margaret. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimous. Dave, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. Okay, now's the time for questions. We want to make sure we're answering as many as we can, and if we run out of time, we'll answer. We'd love to meet with you personally as well. Any questions that we haven't answered, or about anything that we've talked about, or anything association related?
Is there a list of owners, private owners, that is available?
We've had several owners in several of the associations, including this one, request that they do not have, they not be shared.
But is that not part of the master deed that
And
a
it's
list
not part of the
of
master.
owners?
No, it is not a part of the master deed or the bylaws in this association. Now, of course, you can go out to the county records and you have your list there.
Hmm.
But due to respect for privacy of the owners that have requested the privacy of not having their names and addresses handed out, we do not do that. Any other questions?
What company owns the amenities? Is there a distinction between the indoor pool, game room, etc., versus the outdoor pool and lazy river?
There are several different companies that own the different amenities. And once again, that is public record.
Then you shouldn't have a problem telling me what companies own them.
No, I don't have a problem telling you. I just didn't want to take the time.
Well, you know, once again, that's not really HOA related. So Mr. Stafford, if you'd like to talk with us afterwards, we have another annual meeting following this, but later on this afternoon or early next week, we'd love to be able to meet with you and we can discuss all of that.
Deal with it another time. Thank you.
All right. Well, we appreciate your attendance. Do I have a motion to close the meeting?
Close it.
Do we have a
Yes.
second? Okay, thank
Yes.
you. All in favor?
I,
Well, thank you so much for taking time out. We hope it was informative. We appreciate your support and please feel free to reach out to me or any of the group for any questions. We'd love to answer them for you.
thank you.
Okay,
Good day.
bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Safe.